Morsi continues to challenge the will of his people who call him to resign as the army's ultimatum expires within hours. The Russian Foreign Ministry stresses that Lavrov and Kerry stressed their determination to convene an international conference on Syria without preconditions. The Levant Islamic scholars emphasize that the Takfiris have no Islamic Sharia as they aim at dividing and weakening the whole Islamic nation. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Yarado Krikorian with the news in English. An Egyptian military source has declared that the Egyptian General Command is currently holding a crisis meeting hours before the expiry of the ultimatum set by the army for the various political parties to reach a solution to the crisis in Syria. President Morsi had ignored the calls of millions of his people who asked him to resign, alleging, in a word yesterday, his adherence to the legitimacy which dozens of millions of Egyptians have denied him across the country. Morsi openly declared that ousting the Muslim Brotherhood means immersing Egypt in bloodshed. He claimed adherence to the constitutional legitimacy that had been withdrawn from him by millions of Egyptians after they had discovered, weeks after he came to power, the danger of what the Muslim Brotherhood holds in store for Egypt that would undermine the values of the Egyptian society. The Egyptians immediately rejected the speech and considered it as an incitement to civil war. In Tahrir Square and dozens of other squares in Egypt, millions of voices shouted, "Go! Don't undermine the country." The demonstrators stressed insistence on the need to answer their demands about Morsi's departure, shouting slogans denouncing his word. Following the speech, clashes erupted between Morsi's supporters and opponents near Cairo University, causing 20 people to be killed and 200 to be wounded. 5 people were also killed and 500 were injured in other squares across the governorates. An Egyptian military source declared this afternoon the state of emergency at all army units as the ultimatum set by the army is about to expire. Army engineering units dismantled this morning an explosive device weighing 2 kilograms placed by terrorists inside a private Hyundai car near the Opera House in Damascus. On the other hand, a child was injured by a mortar shell that was fired by the terrorists today into the residential houses in Al-Amara neighborhood in Damascus. An official source said that the shell hit a house near a Sadat mosque in Al-Amara, injuring a child and inflicting huge damage in the house. In Latakia, our armed forces have destroyed Jabhat al-Nusra terrorist hideout between Saqiyat al-Kart and Al-Zoubi in the governorate's northern suburbs, including the weapons and ammunition it contained. In Al-Raqqa, Syrian Arab army targeted a hideout for the terrorist leaders during their meeting inside the brick factory in the area of Al-Manakhir, killing most of them and injuring others. In Deir ez-Zor, army units clashed with an armed terrorist group in Al-Huwaijri neighborhood and killed its members, including its leader, nicknamed Abu al-Bara, in addition to another terrorist nicknamed Abu Humam near Al-Siyasiyya bridge. In addition, our army units attacked an armed terrorist group in Al-Mraiya area, killing and wounding dozens of them. In the village of Al-Busaid, army units eliminated the headquarters of the so-called Legitimacy Board and killed its leader, nicknamed Abu Sraj. Army units destroyed a den for an armed terrorist group which called itself the Abd al-Rahman Brigade, destroying weapons and ammunition. A military source pointed out that all the members of the group were killed. Army units chased terrorists in the towns and villages of Al-Shabraq, Syria and Al-Nuaymiyah, who were committing acts of looting and vandalism in Tafas and Da'il Road, killing and wounding dozens of them. Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement that Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his American counterpart John Kerry, the United States, has recognized that the key of the political solution process for the crisis in Syria is unifying the opposition on the base of Geneva Communiqué issued on June 30th. 2012. Lavrov and Kerry discussed the preparations for holding an international conference on Syria in Geneva and the bilateral relations. The two ministers exchanged views on the outcomes of the tripartite meeting held last month in Geneva in the framework of the preparations for the international conference on Syria. For his part, Kerry stressed the US and Russia's commitment to holding the international conference likely in August. Finally, and under the title, The Tolerance of Islam and the Sedition of Takfir, the Levant Countries Islamic Scholars Conference continues its meetings in Beirut amid scholars' emphasis that Takfir has no Islamic Sharia origin and aims at dividing and weakening the nation to keep the minds of Palestine. The opening session started with a brief review of the life of the late scholar Muhammad Saeed Ramadan al-Bouti. Head of the Levant Countries Islamic Scholars Union, Tawfiq al-Bouti, said that the Takfiri fatwas, which allow shedding Muslim blood and instigate sedition among Muslims, have nothing to do with any Islamic Sharia origin. They came in response to personal grudges that contravene the spirit of Islam and the principles of Sharia. On his part, Syria's Grand Mufti Ahmed Badruddin Hassoun said, "The war today is against the Syrian army, which was the reason behind the resistance victory over Israel. Those who have started destroying the army for 2 years now saw that Syria's army was the reason behind the resistance victory in Gaza and South Lebanon," the Mufti said. He stressed that the battle was against the army, not the Syrian government. Hezbollah Deputy Secretary General Sheikh Naim Qasim said the Takfiris and some of those who have been misled are working at the dictates of a malicious international will. He added that they are fighting Syria, the resistance. He affirmed that what is happening in Syria today is systematic destruction under an Arab international, regional and local supervision that would deprive many generations from their future and offers a real service to Israel. Other scholars stressed that the fatwas that allow Muslim bloodshed are not based on any Sharia origin, stressing that takfir is a strange culture for the Islamic world and affirming that the battle today is against the Syrian army that has championed the resistance against Israel. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Vani Gunjan after a short break.
Good afternoon. The Chambers of Industry denied the report circulated by the media saying that the Chambers call for the nationalization of the private banks. The Chambers Union said that it has presented some recommendations to the government on mid-May, including reconsidering the laws and regulations related to the private banks and proposed new regulations which forced these banks to dedicate 1/3 of their lending allocations to finance the small and medium projects. The General Establishment of Sugar affirmed that it has adopted a plan for next year to produce 1,360,000 tons of sugar beet. The establishment pointed out that a lack of yeast would be covered by distributing yeast from the establishment's stockpiles, noting that the difficulties that have prevented implementing the production plan of refining raw sugar is due to the inability to import raw materials as a result of the sanctions that are imposed on Syria. Crude oil surged with the U.S. crude, which exceeded $100 a barrel for the first time in 9 months. On shrinking of the U.S. stockpiles and concern that the political turmoil in Egypt will lead to Middle East supply disruptions, futures rose 2.6% after climbing to the highest settlement price in 14 months. U.S. stocks fell, erasing earlier gains as the Standard & Poor's 500 index failed to hold above its average level from the past 50 days. European stocks also dropped the most in more than a week, while Japanese Topix index rose for a fifth day, capping the longest twin streak since April after swinging most of the day. The Jewelers Assembly set the price of the 21-carat gold at 7,600 Syrian pounds per gram, while the Rashadi golden coin was set at 55,200 Syrian pounds, and the English coin was set at 61,800 Syrian pounds. For a second day against the dollar after the resignation of 2 ministers from the nation's government reignited speculation that Europe's debt crisis is worsening. The yen strengthened against all of its 16 major counterparts. With this, we conclude our news. Thank you for watching and goodbye.